Hi everybody, so I wanted to give a more in-depth review on the book Sick Bargain by Nordica Knight. Um, so this book kind of starts off with our main character Remy, and he's kind of on the run, and it gives us like a little bit of the information on how he and his entire male line in his family has been cursed, essentially. And also, let me just also put in a little bit of a disclaimer about this book, and also kind of like how there's also a disclaimer and a bit of a content warning on this series. Um, and it is a dark romance and story, but in the back of the book is where there is a content warning on the stories, and I'm not really going to list all of the content warnings. I personally didn't read any of the content warnings. I don't typically read um, content warnings in many stories. Everyone who is to each their own. If those are what you definitely should read, if you have particular things that are bothersome for you, and I think it's definitely highly advisable for authors to put them in more conservative places just because of how particular people can use them to a disadvantage for authors. Um, I'm not listing all of them at that particular time just because, again, I don't want to upset Daddy YouTube by specifically listing off a line of aggressive content, but this can have um, a wild list of activities that are in this book. So if you are easily triggered by specific things, I would go over the content warnings of this book. Um, your mental health is important. So I would definitely look at that. And if you are, I would definitely maybe check that out maybe before going over this. I'm not going over anything specifically upsetting in this video, so don't worry about that. And I won't say anything that could be explicit in the over the internet or anything like that. It would be generally just kind of like internet safe information. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there, just so everyone will know that that can be found in this book. Um, so just to make yourself aware, but I don't think that takes away from the content. But again, you know your mind, so do with that with you what you will. But this particular family line and the males in this family line are cursed with a unaliving curse, specifically the male side. The female side of their families, specifically like daughters, are not affected, but all of the males in the family line have all taken their own lives. And our male character, he is kind of like trying to avoid the curse, and so he's on the run at this particular moment trying to find an escape from the curse because he's having kind of like unforeseen agents pushing him to give in to the curse, as recently his father gave in and one of his brothers did not too long ago, and another one of his brothers as well gave in, his younger brother. And so he is trying to find a way to get around the curse. And that's kind of like the main, I don't say main plot point, but that's kind of like our kicking off point of the story is he is trying to avoid the curse, and that leads him to the Vile House. And this is where he goes to make his bargain. And in doing so, Remy inevitably makes a bargain with his life. And does not really think carefully about this bargain that he makes. He just in this community, because they kind of live in what would you call a kind of like a Sleepy Hollow-esque, or kind of like a Salem witch kind of a community, where you know that there are like spooky things in the corner, that you know if you knock on this door you could find a palm reading witch who can do, you know, some other kind of dark dealings. So, you know, if you knock on the door of the Vile House, you can get these type of favors made. So he does that. He goes in and he makes a deal. And he's like, I want to bargain away my life. And, you know, not as in like, I want you to take it away, but I will give you my life. Not really thinking about what that means. And in doing so, it gives him access into the house and access to the, he doesn't really know what he's getting access to, because this is a secret society in their community of sorts. But it gets him access inside of the house, and he goes in begging one of these 10 masked beings to take his bargain. And eventually one of them does, and in this video we will mention him as Purple. I have decided to keep some contexts of the story just a little bit not spoiled, just because there are some pieces that are kept from you as a reader, the entire story, aspects of the story that you do not ever find out within this particular first story, such as the rest of the 10 masked people's names. Though we interact with them throughout the rest of the story, we still do not find out other people's names, as in their true identities. Some of them we never find out within the rest of the story. And even within this rendition of the story, it takes you a substantial amount of time to find out some people's actual identities. And so within that in mind, I'm going to kind of like keep the identity a secret, just because I think if you do want to read the story, it might make it a little bit more enjoyable to just have a couple of extra surprises, just in case you want to have just some sprinkles of fun here and there. And also because there are still some things that are secretive, no matter how much you do or do not have knowledge of from this video or from reading the story within your entirety as well. So after, you know, begging and pleading to the room of the 10 masked strangers, Purple inevitably takes Remy's bargain, and that nothing is really further kind of like understood in that moment, or what that means for Remy. It's just kind of like solidified. Your bargain will be taken and something will happen, and nothing is really clarified within that exact moment. And so he's kind of like taken away from that space, so that he can kind of have a moment away from where the rest of the Vile House constituents. But from here is kind of like where Remy's story kind of really begins. This is where he has to kind of tell Purple what exactly he wants from the bargain. And this is where he pretty much says that he wants 3 people to disappear. One, inevitably he wants to have unalived. Well, two technically. He wants inevitably unalived. One, he wants to be gone. The last one, ironically enough, happens to be his brother. Two are, one is someone who has been kind of like stalking and kind of like trying to get him to participate in the curse. And the other name is someone who has been kind of like bothering his family and his mom's family because they were essentially a part of a cult at some point or another, and their family got out of the cult, but they did not like that their family got out of the cult, so they have been harassing their family after they got out of the cult. And so he wanted those people to. And this is when Purple tells him the rest of the bargain that he is requiring of Remy. And in this part, he's basically telling him all of the aspects of their bargain that is required of him, and the aspects of the bargain where he is not allowed to do specific things, the interactions of the bargain where he's not allowed to, how he's not allowed to interact with other people, and it kind of gets very nitty gritty, it gets very touchy-feely, it gets very physical in these aspects, because at this point in the story, they've had a bit of a close, not close reaction or close interactions with each other. They haven't really talked much. It's mostly just been their first encounter that wasn't very good. They've had just kind of like one slight meeting on accident, but on purpose, where they were kind of just like not really interacting, because it's just like they interact through calling cards, where he kind of just says, be here, be there, and he just kind of like hides them in places, in like Remy's pockets or Remy's house, and then he registers him unconscious instead of talking to him in any other way or any other thing. He just kind of deposits him places, and that's it. You know, like at the end of the initial thing, he was just kind of like unconscious, deposit him somewhere, unconscious, deposit him somewhere, you know? And that's kind of how it is, you know? Have a very awkward, non-interaction with someone else, you know, unalive someone else who looked at you wrong and said your trigger word, to see how Remy reacts to it. These kind of like interactions that they had with each other have pretty much led to this kind of like push-pull relationship where Remy kind of feels like he doesn't particularly care for him, and he has not yet realized the severity of the situation that he has truly gotten himself into, whereas Purple knows exactly what he's gotten himself into, though the rest of his cohorts are not happy at all with his bargain. And actually, you can see from because it is dual POV, you can see from the perspectives of his cohorts around him, because when they are in their other perspectives, and you can see from the multiple identities that they have, because the way that their operation works, they have their reality identities, and then they have their biohouse identities. And at the point of the story that we are speaking about right now, you don't know who they actually are in reality. So he is still just a regular masked man, and so you're still talking to them, and you are in their other you can still see his other, like you can see him in their other identities. Now that I know both identities, you have seen them in both identities and you have not known it. And you have interacted with them in both identities and not known it. And it's actually quite hilarious. To this point. And I think some of that has also kind of led to where we've gotten to the point where it turns into an enemies to lovers relationship, because it very quickly, it instantly turns for Purple to an obsession very, very quickly. He instantly becomes obsessed with Remy in a graveyard, where it's like, has a very weird reaction to Purple unaliving someone. And then it just kind of spirals from there, an obsession. Because he just kind of watches, like Remy watches this girl in a way that Purple can understand, because Purple constantly wants to be understood, and Remy is that person for Purple. That's kind of a spoiler, but you can kind of see it in that moment in time. If you look closely enough, you can pretty much just see that there's like a mutual understanding happening in those moments. And you can see it happening as well when you look at how they create the bargain, as you get to the exact time frame in this moment when they are like isolating out the literal moments of, this is what you need to have in the exact moment of, this is in the bargain. As they set it up step by step, and Remy carelessly doesn't understand anything. And truly, when he asked for the bargain, created the bargain, he was truly hoping that inevitably Purple would unalive him and would truly create this bargain to save and trap his brother. That was truly his intention. And he tells this to Purple. And by this point, again, as I just said, Purple has twistedly become obsessed with him. And this is, again, still the beginning of the book. Yeah. And, yeah. Telling this to Purple, he doesn't like it. And so he's telling him, as he's, again, we're creating this bargain. He's like, that's not how this is going along. He's like, this bargain is going to be what's going to keep you alive. We are going to take care of these names on their list. We're going to get rid of these people, but I'm going to make you stay alive. You are going to understand why you should be alive. And I think that is like the main point of this book, is not like about death, but about life, and about helping someone who thought that they could not avoid death understand and find purpose and find life and find joy and find their own self in life that they never could, because their life became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it seems like their entire families did as well. They were told from birth, because they were males in their family, you have a curse, you will amount to nothing, you will end up not living long enough to ever see anything. And I think for most of their family members who are men, that's all their life ever was. You were born to unalive yourself. And I think that is, mostly the point of this character's story arc. Not to spoil like everything, but I'm thinking that is like what is happening in this exact second. I don't think everyone intrinsically understands that, specifically Remy, in the point that Purple is trying to make. But I think that's the point he is trying to get him to understand, is what he is trying to do for him. In a twisted manner of speaking. Because don't get me wrong, everything that doesn't happen between them happens in a completely aggressive manner. And he says so. He calls himself out, remarkably so, and Remy calls him out, and they say it to each other's faces all the time. Now, there's nothing soft about the fact that they do many things in a very rough manner. I'm not gonna make judgments on those things. You like what you like, and that is what it is. So from there on is kind of like where their kind of twisted love affair kind of like goes forth, and is kind of like where you start to see is where Remy becomes part of Vile House, and where like the rest of the story kind of unfolds, and where you kind of get pulled into a mystery of the story, where it kind of goes, where I'm sure it's gonna travel on from book to book. Because after we get into the bargain, it's where it just kind of turns, like, again, it's where you start to go more into their love, and then it's mostly a push and pull between the two of them. Like, Remy's fighting the fact that he's falling for him, Purple's fighting none of that. It's just like, yep. And he just falls deeper and deeper into that obsession, doesn't care about that at all. We love to see that. It's very much touch him and you die. We love to see that. I'm a sucker for an obsession. I don't care. I don't have any answers for that. So we're just gonna go past that. We're just gonna move past that. So, they just, again, fall deeper into that sodded love affair. It does not speak specifically of exactly love. Again, it's just, you hear more of the language of, like, you get specifically into the language of people who, because again, the book has some undertones of people with confused illness almost, like, but not even that. Mostly because Purple is like, wants at some point or another to have some sort of a diagnosis of some type, because he felt conflicted about not knowing who he was, or what could be some sort of a definition of who he is, which inevitably goes away. And I'm not going to diagnose or say what is or what isn't, because part of the story is connected to an asylum. I'm not going to comment on that. Because again, it's one of those kind of like whole drop in the hole kind of a towns, like a lost nugget town. And I think it's part of the vibes. It's like you go to like a Sleepy Hollow, you go to a town that doesn't exist. I think it's part of like that kind of a spooky, kind of a haunted vibe, You know, it has cults. It has, you know, lots of those cults. It's got so many of them. I think it comes to be a part of the vibe of the area. Cults and curses. You know, it's like that place that, you know, brings tourists in and they disappear. I think that that's part of the surrounding nature of the story. I think that's part of what is the mystery that you are trying to unfold inside of the story, that comes to be an issue where, you know, it's what brings Remy in closer, because his mom starts acting strange. Um, you know, because at some point or another, his mom like attacked him with a knife and made it look like he tried to harm himself. Um, you know, but she did it in a way that looks like it was his fault. Um, and there was something that was going on. There was more citizens in their society that were all acting odd, but no one had any answers. And so Purple became like a sacrificial lamb to help investigate. And so they eventually uncovered that it was possibly a locator chip that was somehow involved in that. And they were all going to this doctor who was hypnotizing them. And they're like, we're going to send Purple because he has a very strong mind that cannot be penetrated very easily. Yet that is circumstantial. You know, does it actually go very well? It goes well and it doesn't. You know, they send him and he gets his chip and he gets hypnotized. But you know, there's so many things that we think and we don't think when we do things like that. But I mean, it goes and it goes well, so to speak. And it doesn't go well. He comes back and he's like, here's the chip, and we hijack the chip. But, you know, inevitably he goes back and he comes back again, and, you know, he goes missing. And inevitably, like most stories, we have a climactic moment where he is inevitably turned against everybody, and we have to save the day. And Remy saves the day, just like the doctor hoped. But the doctor, everything seems like it's turning on its head and everything seems like it's going good. But at the end of the story, it doesn't really seem like anything went well. Everything seems like it all went awry because, you know, he said he had this mind that couldn't be turned against him, but his mind really was turned against him. And everyone in the Vile House pretty much let this enemy into their fortress and be a part of their team to help them protect themselves against the enemy. But he kept lying to everybody about his intentions. And, you know, they're here to protect their community because that's what Vile House does. You know, they make bargains with their community to protect them. But this person who's implanting chips and mind controlling people also does bad things with them. But this person also had interesting secrets about people that, you know, they find out while they were, you know, doing their mind control. You know, at the same time, you know, it's very, very suspicious about what their help actually brings, because they were also working with the money who wanted to come and take over their land and take over their people and turn them into mindless, like, sheep to fight against the bad guy, to protect their, you know, their area. But at what cost? Like, what do you really want to help? Like, who are you really helping with this mind control technology? You said, I didn't really control anyone with hypnotism. I controlled them with sound. You know, it's like you're telling so many people so many different answers. So what really was the truth? You know, what was the truth inevitably? And then also we found out some more nuggets of information that could be true, could not be true. There were so many red herrings about the mother when they said that the mother was a bad person. She was one person who was under the mind control, and the mother was acting very odd. Very odd the whole time. You can't trust the mother. Never trust the mother. The mother, she was very suspicious, and the entire book, no one said to ever be in the mother's house because she was not safe. And, you know, the bad guy inevitably told us something about the mother, and that the dad was that he was resilient and that he was living a good, okay life. And then the mom thought he was living too long. What does that mean? What does that mean? It sounds like the mom is secretly getting rid of the family members. Because she was acting really strange around her kids. It was weird. It was very, very weird. It was also giving vibes like the other sons who gave into the curse. I don't know, because someone else, you know, because they captured somebody. I also kind of, okay, I forgot this part, where they captured one of the people who, they got rid of everyone on his list. Everyone who was on his list that was part of his bargain, they all were captured. They were all done away with. Excuse me. They were all captured and done away with. But one of them who was captured and said that he was in love with the mother, and that the one who was stalking him, that was stalking Remy, said that your mom asked me to stalk you and to keep bothering you, like the one who was trying to push him into giving into the curse. They thought he was the next one that was close enough to giving into the curse. And she was like, she asked me to stalk you and to like keep pushing you so that you would give into the curse. I don't know. The mom seems real suspicious. I don't know what's wrong with her. I don't know what's up with her. But and then the book just kind of leaves on a cliffhanger. Don't know. But, you know, Remy's protected. He's part of Vile House. Still don't know who a bunch of people's real names or identities are. Know absolutely nothing about them. Nothing. Like all the other Vile House important people, nothing. We know absolutely nothing. Like they were hanging around. We were fighting together. Nothing. You know absolutely nothing about them. You just know like the colors of their masks. Might have saw their faces too. We just know like their code names, like their nicknames. Yeah, like my nickname is French. Nickname is Jim Bob. My nickname is Rigby. That's all we got. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. I mean, even if we know their real name, I don't think I'm gonna mean anything either. My name is Toad. It means nothing. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little review of Sick Bargain. I hope you enjoyed this little experience with us. Let me know if there's any special books that you might want to hear about next. Alrighty, have a great day. Bye.